What's going on, everybody? Sam here with Appletree. I'm on the beautiful island of Maui. Super excited and super grateful to be here for a couple weeks. Today we're going to be talking about downwind boards, or the downwind board shape for light wind winging. Why it's so amazing and how it can really, open up days on the water for you. And what sort of dimensions are going to really work well. So let's start with the dimension part of it. That's super subjective to what you want, how big you are, and where you're riding. We did a how to pick your downwind board size video, and a lot of those topics really apply to light wind winging. But basically, quick overview of that is you're gonna wanna start with your weight, and that'll dictate, your weight and your skill level will dictate your volume, right? And if you're looking at production boards, once you have your volume in mind, you maybe have one or two different boards to pick from. And then you just have to decide between those dimensions what fits your skill level and your area best. If you have any questions on how to decide what fits your area best, go look at that downwind board video. That'll really iron out those topics. In general, if you're just using that shape for light wind winging, you can go shorter and a bit wider than your average downwind board. This will allow you a little bit more stability when you're trying to get from your knees to your feet, and it'll reduce the length a little bit while keeping the volume for it to allow it to be a little bit more agile. The downwind board for light wind winging is like, I was just starting to use it at the very end of last summer, and now this past season in the gorge, which is where I live, on light days, it was comical how light of winds you can go on. Like, all my friends are out there on inflatable sups with beers, paddling around, and I'm out there winging on a downwind board. You can go in single digits, super easy, like lulling 4 or 5 knots, maxing out at 9 knots on a 4-meter wing and like an 1,000 foil, and you can have a blast. It's really quite comical, and it really opens up so many days on the water for people that don't live in a place like, Maui or the gorge, lakes and places that just aren't as windy. You really get out in the water so much more. Also has the added benefit of if, the wind does die, which if you're going out in sort of marginal conditions, there's definitely that possibility. Super easy to paddle in, or even just stand on and slog in without being on foil. You're gonna get home with that downwind shape. So what allows that to get up and go on light wind? It's the long and narrow shape that we took from downwinding when that discipline really started to take off. Right, everyone put a lot of energy into making these super efficient, easiest shape to get up and go on a foil, because you just don't have that much energy to work with to get up on a foil when you're sup downwinding, right? And then everyone started to realize, like, oh my gosh, like I can get going in the lightest of light winds. So that's what makes the downwind board a super awesome light wind wing board. To be clear, this is my wing board, not a downwind board, but it's pretty cool how light of winds you can get going on. The other benefit is if you're just getting into the sport and you're thinking about, what board should I get as a beginner? You could look at a bigger downwind board. There's a lot of added benefits. I think a lot of the things that I just mentioned for light wind winging, like the ease of getting up on a foil, the amount of days spent on the water, those type of things are going to be really nice for a beginner, right? Maybe the one drawback is side to side, they're going to be a little bit tippier, but you can still get a 22, 23 inch wide board. Still going to be tippy side to side, but with the extra length and the ease of it getting going and tracking through the water, I think it offsets that. And then the biggest thing is, now you've aged out of this board, you can go to a smaller wing board like I have next to me, and now you still have this awesome tool in your quiver that it's not no longer obsolete. You don't have to sell it off or pass it down to a kid or a friend. It's still this really usable tool in your quiver. So it's pretty nice to keep that in rotation. That's the gist of light wind winging on the downwind board. We get a lot of questions about it. People ask about size and shape and is it really worth it? How light of winds can you go on? All of that depends a lot on you and the conditions that you ride in. But using myself as a reference, I like, under 7 foot for sure. Around 90 liters works well for me. And I can get going on a 4-meter wing, 5 to 7 knots, 1,000 foil, and you stay up and you're having a blast. You can still do your tacks, your backwinds, you can rip turns still a super agile board in the waves or in the flat water or whatever you want. If you have any questions, feel free to hit us up, and stoked to see you out on the water.